A young Army couple's marriage is broken up in gruesome fashion, less than a year after they said, "I do."
Saria Hildabrand was shot in the head that night, just above her left temple, and that ended her life.
And now one of those newlyweds is on trial, accused of killing his wife.
Where is she? What happened? When will we find her? Those are the questions that everyone else in Saria Hildabrand's life was asking. Except for the defendant, Zarrius Hildabrand, as he already knew all those answers.
This case is a tragedy. It's heartbreaking. It's not murder.
A jury's gonna have to decide, was this a crime of passion or a horrible accident? Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. By the way, Father's Day is right around the corner. Do you have a gift for the dads out there? Well, if you don't, think about this. Meet the Chef IQ Sense Smart Meat Thermometer. This is the secret to stress-free restaurant-level cooking. So whether you're a seasoned grill master or you're just trying to throw on some steaks for the summer, the Smart Thermometer is a game changer. There's no more overcooking. There's no more, I think this might be done. No, Chef IQ tells you exactly when your meat is ready every step of the way. You just insert the wireless probe, you select your preferences, you hang out, you relax while you wait for the app alerts without having to hover over the grill. It also works with ovens, smokers, stovetops, air fryers, and for every protein, from prime rib to wings to salmon. Seriously, this Father's Day, it's time to raise the stakes. No pun intended, and cook with confidence. Use code SIDEBAR for 40% off site-wide at chefiq.com. What should have been the start of a newlywed, fun, exciting adventure ends in tragedy. Saria Barney would never get to live past the age of 21. And the man that she married begins a very different adventure of his own, a different journey, facing a jury among his peers on murder charges. We are closely watching the trial of Zarrius Hildabrand out of Anchorage, Alaska, which kicked off today with opening statements. We've been covering it, and you have all the highlights you need to know right here on this episode of Sidebar. But first, got to give you some context, got to give you the background story, got to tell you how we got here. September 2021. Zarrius Hildabrand joined the Army, according to the Anchorage Daily News, arrived in Alaska in April of 2022. The U.S. Army told the Daily News that he was a cannon crew member. He was assigned to the 2nd Infantry Brigade Combat Team, airborne of the 11th Airborne Division. He was positioned at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. Now, during that same period, Saria Barney was in Utah, where the Daily News reports that she served in the National Guard as a field artillery fire finder radar operator. The two, their love story reportedly began in the summer of 2022. This is when they met during Army basic training, and after a brief long-distance relationship, they were married by the end of the year. Eventually ended up living together in Alaska. And at that point, Saria was assigned to the Alaska Army National Guard's headquarters and headquarters company. She also worked at a local restaurant called Bread and Brew, which will come up a lot. And it appeared that Saria and Zarrius were great. They were finally setting into their new lives as a married couple. Again, supposed to be an exciting time. But by August of 2023, everything changed. Saria would be dead. And days later, her husband would be arrested and charged with 1st and 2nd degree murder, as well as tampering with evidence. And now there are a lot of questions here, a lot of questions. Why would Zarrius, according to investigators, want to kill his new wife? Were there issues from the start? What exactly happened the night that she died? Now, we shared an episode on Tuesday laying out the background of this case, the timeline through the criminal complaint, along with reactions from Saria's own mother as the investigation unfolded. So check that video out. It's up on Law&Crime's YouTube channel. You can watch the whole thing. But right now, what we're going to do today is we got the trial. We got day one. Today's episode is about telling this story now through the prosecution and the defense in their opening statements, okay? Which, by the way, said before, opening statements sometimes it's not supposed to be the case, but a jury will decide the case based on the opening statements, even though it's not evidence. It's just human nature. You see studies about that, how each side crafts the narrative. And in this case, you got a jury of 9 men and 7 women. So let's start with the prosecution, how they laid it out, how they described what they claimed happened on the night of the alleged murder.
On Sunday, August 5th, 2023, Saria had planned some events and presents as it was the defendant's 21st birthday. She had planned for some friends to go out. A few came over. She made him a present in the form of a beer cake, and she was excited to celebrate him. One of those friends that came over was Marie Wentz to their apartment at 5210 Mockingbird Drive, Unit 13. Marie had become friends with Saria since she moved to Alaska. They were inseparable, texting constantly. They were together that day. That morning, they had gone to the gym, as they frequently did, and then ran some errands in preparation for his birthday. Later that evening, the group went to Dave & Buster's. They were winning prizes and playing games and having a good time. Saria was extremely excited to win a Pickle Rick plushie. She was texting her mom about it. She was even Googling how to win the most points at Dave & Buster's. And she did win it. And she took a photo with her husband to celebrate that. After Dave & Buster's, they left. At Dave & Buster's, there was a much larger group, and then some of them went downtown. The people that went downtown are Logan Calhoun and Zachary Farrar, who were friends with the defendant, as well as Marie Wentz and her friend, Isaac Mulholland, who were friends more so with Saria. When they got to Gaslight, the defendant was declined entry. He was a little bummed, but eventually Saria ordered them an Uber home, where she took the defendant, Marie and Isaac, back to 5210 Mockingbird Drive. Marie and Isaac went their separate way in the parking lot, as Saria walked inside with the defendant, helping him along, but he was walking fine. They get inside alone, and that was the last time Saria Hildabrand was ever seen alive.
So up until this point, it sounds like the couple had a fun night out with friends, celebrating Zarrius' birthday, Dave & Buster's, trying to get into a club, denied entry, eventually make it home. You know, nothing out of the ordinary. But then the prosecutor hits with that final line. She was never seen alive again after that night. Let's hear how the prosecutor lays out what investigators believe happened next.
In that apartment that night, it was the two of them. According to the defendant, at one point, they'd gone inside. She probably took the dogs out. They were even giving each other grief back and forth, making fun of each other before they fell asleep. However, between 2:12 and 2:24 a.m. that day, Saria found evidence of the defendant cheating on her on Snapchat and Instagram, sending photos to girls, offering to fly them out to Alaska, getting photos from them, sending plenty, even offering to kiss and make it better. The last photo that we see on Saria's phone that night was at 2:24. After that, at 2:40, Marie got a call from Saria's phone. Unfortunately, she had been home for a while. She didn't see it. It went unanswered. Just 8 minutes later, at 2:48 a.m., 911 got a call from Taylor Engstrom, a neighbor in the apartment just across the courtyard. He calls in and says, about 30 seconds ago, there was a gunshot. It sounded just outside my window. It was very loud. I don't know where it came from, but he called it in. Saria Hildabrand was shot in the head that night, just above her left temple, and that ended her life.
So now we're starting to see the prosecutor set the scene, right? The night began perfect, but now, back at the apartment, the cracks in the relationship come to the surface, leading to what prosecutors allege is a fatal conclusion. But the prosecution obviously has to present evidence, right? Evidence connecting Zarrius to this murder. So here's how she describes the defendant's actions after the alleged murder.
In those early morning hours, officers did respond to that 911 call, but without knowing directly where it's from. They didn't have the opportunity to contact the defendant that night. The next morning, early morning hours of Sunday, August 6th, around 9:10, no one heard from Saria. No messages, no one heard from her. Marie Wentz eventually sent a message, I believe a Snapchat, asking how Saria and the defendant were feeling. She got a response from Saria's phone, but it wasn't from Saria. That response was from the defendant, sending a thumbs up that he felt fine. Marie asked if they would want to go to lunch and get some food, probably to help with some of the feelings they were having that morning. The defendant said, "Nope, we can't go, we don't want to go." Saria already left and walked to work at 10 that day. Marie found that a little odd, considering the defendant said Saria forgot her phone. Saria was always on her phone. 21-year-old on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, texting, all of the above. However, she didn't push it. She also found it odd because the night before, Saria had said she intended on calling out. So she didn't expect Saria to go to work, let alone to walk. But she understood the defendant had her phone and that she would hear from her friend later. At least she hoped. But she didn't. Throughout Sunday, August 6th, Marie wasn't the only one to get messages from Saria's phone. Nadia Jones was Saria's manager at Bread and Brew. At 10:44 a.m., she got a text, "Hey, this is Saria. Can't make it in today, giving an excuse." Nadia took that at face value, and no one else heard from Saria's phone that day. Marie had reached out a few times between the end of Sunday, sending DMs or funny videos, asking, "Where are you? Why haven't you talked to me?" Because this was the longest they had gone in their friendship without talking, so she found it very odd.
Now, at this point, it appears that Saria's friends think she's at work, but her manager apparently gets a text saying she's calling out. And now people are starting to get a little suspicious, especially since the prosecutor says Saria, who's typically glued to her phone, no one's heard from her. Now it's been 2 days since the group's night out.
Monday, August 7th came. The defendant went to work. You heard from one of his friends that he works with on base at the Army that he seemed a little off. So he asked, "Is everything okay?" He said, "Yeah, just stuff going on. I'll talk to you about it later." That's it. Then about midday, early afternoon, Marie gets a call from Saria's phone again. It's Mr. Hildabrand. He says, "Hey, Saria's been missing since 10 a.m. yesterday." Marie goes, "What do you mean?" It's been 30 hours. She doesn't have her phone. She immediately gets concerned. She tells him, "I'll come over as soon as I can right after work," but she was stuck there for a few more hours. And she did go straight over. She asked, "Have you reported her missing? Where could she be?" She's so concerned for her friend because she's been missing for so long, and she doesn't have her phone, and she didn't hear from her. Once Marie was with the defendant, that's when calls started being made to hospitals, jails, and even to 911, which hadn't been done yet. Marie made that call.
Please dispatch. Hi, I think my friend is missing. Okay. And why do you think she's missing, or he or she's missing? I haven't spoken to her in 2 days, and her husband hasn't heard from her in over a day, like 30 hours now.
And you'll hear the entirety of that call. He was there, and Marie put it on speaker so he could answer questions that she didn't know. But Marie made that call at 5:34 p.m. While they waited for an APD officer to arrive, they started searching. The apartments at 5210 Mockingbird are at the bottom of your screen. Up in the top right on Tudor is where Saria worked at Bread and Brew. So they started searching that area. Where could she be? Walking around through the woods, getting muddy. During that time, Marie was searching. She had called 911. The defendant was with her, and they're waiting on APD. Marie has to call a few more times to update APD where they are, when they're coming. That's not the only call that was made to inform Saria missing. Meredith Barney, Saria's mother, got a call in Utah at 7:44 p.m. Alaska time, almost 10 p.m. her time, from the defendant, Zarrius Hildabrand. Hey, Saria's missing. Has been for over 33 hours. He told that same scripted story. Left for work at 10 a.m. on Sunday. Didn't take her phone. Haven't heard from her. Meredith immediately jumped on a plane. She's coming to find her daughter. On the plane, she's coordinating with her family to make a missing poster, to try to find Saria, to even figure out if she can track a phone, all of those things. But she didn't find her that day. One other thing on Monday, August 7th, is APD Officer Zhang did respond. And he asked the defendant many questions. Has Saria ever gone missing before? No. We get that same scripted answer. Left at 10 a.m. to walk to work. Didn't have her phone. Haven't seen her. Don't know what happened. He asked, has she ever had suicidal tendencies or something that could explain this? He says, no, not at all. I don't know where she is. She was wearing all black when she went to work. Black graphic tee. Don't know where. Forgot her phone. She's gone. Later that evening, one of Marie and the defendant's mutual friends, Dalen Gates, came over. Dalen worked in the Army with the defendant, and he knew Marie through other mutual friends. Marie at that point was covered in mud. It was late in the evening. She had to go let her dog out. So she briefly crossed paths with Dalen. But Dalen was the one who went inside and spent time with him to check on his friend. He was concerned for him. He made him dinner. And then he watched as Zarrius Hildabrand cried. I think it was ugly cried. And said, I'm blaming myself. It's all my fault. But then I should have driven her to work that morning. Crying as his friend's trying to console him, thinking his wife is missing.
So prosecutors raise an important point. It allegedly took Zarrius, her husband, at least a day to report his wife missing. And now at this point, her family and friends are looking for her. Zarrius allegedly tells police it isn't in Saria's character to run away, and he's allegedly crying to his friends that it's his fault. And the prosecutor also mentions that it's not just police looking for Saria. Military resources are now being used. More than 70 soldiers reportedly helped scan the area. But the one person who apparently didn't participate in the initial search, the defendant, her husband, he allegedly said he lost his wallet, had to sit out. So with no signs of Saria anywhere, detectives start reviewing the evidence that they have so far, right? The statements, the 911 calls, and they even went to speak with the defendant himself at this shared apartment.
He let them in. He talked to them. He gave that same scripted story. Left for work at 10 a.m. Forgot her phone. Don't know what happened. He told them, I was home all Sunday. Just vegetating, kind of recovering. Didn't leave the house. So they start asking him, okay, what happened Sunday morning? He says they woke up at 8:30 or 9 after sleeping in the same bed together, and that she at 10 o'clock went to work. 10 o'clock, walked to work, which was her first time doing that, as she had never walked before. He explained that they may have still been a little buzzed, so she was hesitant about driving. However, when he was asked what time she was expected home, he said 7 p.m. on Sunday, August 6th. He didn't see her at 7 p.m. So he decided to wait, according to what he told detectives, until 9 p.m. to make sure she wasn't lost or something. And then he said that he went out searching, drove in the parking lot of Bread and Brew, looked all over. And we'll get to what he did that day and evening in a moment. When asked, why did you wait so long, over 30 hours to report her missing, he said, I didn't know if it was serious. I didn't want to waste anybody's time. When Detective Clark asked, where do you think we're going to find Saria? He paused, hesitated, takes a breath. You'll hear many of those statements. He says, I think she'll be within a 2 to 3 mile radius of here. We'll later find out that was correct.
Now, the prosecutor's eventually going to talk about where they find Saria, but first, she brings up some arguably suspicious items in the apartment.
While officers were speaking with him, Detective Clark and Detective Elby, they were looking around the apartment when they were in the living room with them. They saw a set of brand new sheets on the table. They asked him about it. He said, I didn't buy those. I've never even been at the sheet aisle in Fred Meyer. She must have bought them when I was on field training the week before. Okay. Officers ask if they can take a look around the apartment, just make sure she's not there in one of the rooms they can't see. He allows them. He says, go ahead, take a look. Officers do. They don't find Saria. At one point, they notice that on his bed that he shared with Saria is a mattress pad, like a mattress topper cover. And they ask, hey, why don't you have sheets on the bed? He says, I do. They're under the mattress topper. Detectives go, why would you put them under the mattress topper? He says, oh, we got the mattress from someone crummy, that's why. Here, I'll show you. And he lifts the edge of the mattress topper, showing the sheets. However, when he does that, detectives can see that there's a space under the bed. There's not a box spring. They ask, hey, can we take a look under there? Mr. Hildabrand gives an alternative offer. I have embarrassing stuff under there. It's inappropriate. Detectives just point out they want to make sure she's not under there. He says, no, she's not. She wouldn't fit. Detectives accept that answer at that time and leave. But before they did, they asked a few more questions, including, hey, you have her phone right now. We just saw her mom grab it with her laptop. Can you explain to me how, if she left at 10 a.m. on Sunday, how did Nadia Jones get a text at 10:44 if you had her phone? I don't have an explanation for that, sir. That was his response. I don't have an explanation for that. That night, or in that evening, the defendant also stopped by her work for the first time. Went inside on Tuesday, August 8th. One of the employees he had contact with was Kaylani Thompson. She wasn't super close with Saria, but worked with her. Knew her fairly well. Knew that she had gone out on Saturday. Wasn't shocked that she didn't come in on Saturday. But when he came in, Kaylani will tell you about how weird his vibe was. He was nervous, kept scratching, wouldn't look her in the eye, look at anywhere else. So she thought that was odd, and she started asking him questions. He wouldn't answer. She was told by some people, don't push him. His wife's missing. However, when she saw the defendant outside with some of that Army search crew that we talked about, he was laughing and smiling and joking around. I think she described it as they were hee-hee-ha-haing, which she found very concerning because Saria's missing. But that's what the defendant did. Now, Wednesday, August 9th. Throughout this investigation, actually, I want to back up to one more point. When he spoke to detectives on the 8th, originally he said I was home vegetating all day. When they said, hey, we'll check cameras, is there anything else? He goes, oh, actually, I ran some errands. I went to Fred Meyer's and got stuff for guacamole salsa, and I also went to Brown Jug. So he changed that from being home all day.
At this point, the defendant is allegedly struggling to reason with police on why texts were coming from Saria's phone when, according to Zarrius, she left her phone at home when she walked to work. And even Saria's co-worker reportedly noticed something was off when she spoke with the defendant. Also, there's the fact that he allegedly told police he, vegetates out on Sunday, and then said he was actually running errands. It's those errands that are going to show up again during this opening statement. But we're fast forwarding to August 9th, so now 4 days since the group's night out, and police are at the couple's apartment again, this time with a search warrant.
On the surface, just as if they were there, there wasn't anything obviously out of the concern. Pickle Rick made it back on the bed. But when they began to look more closely, they were able to start seeing reddish-brown stains When they began to look more closely, they could see those reddish-brown stains, multiple places all over the apartment. And that's what they saw when they lifted the bed. Not embarrassing sex stuff, but a mattress so soaked through it with blood that when it was flipped, the framing it was on actually imprinted into the blood. They also observed mop buckets and disinfecting wipes, multiple things throughout the apartment. There'll be ample evidence as to what crime scene found in his apartment. Another thing they found is in the living room, in between the couch cushions, tan Sig Sauer handgun tucked in between the things. Just near there on a table, they found letters authored by the defendant, where he says, "I don't know where you are. I hope you're found alive. If not, if she's found alive or dead, please bury her with me." But one thing he says is, "I loved her," in the past tense. Saraya's still missing. He also drafts one to APD. "For all the people working the case, I'm sorry the information I gave you wasn't the best." Signed, Zarrius Hildabrand.
Between the blood, the bed sheets, the handgun, these notes allegedly written by the defendant, investigators are gearing up to search closer to the apartment complex for any signs of Saria.
On Thursday, August 10th, they're again searching that area between her apartment and Bread and Brew. And you'll see on maps and photos throughout this trial that there's a frontage road, less than 100 yards, maybe a couple hundred yards from the apartment building. As they're searching, they end up finding a trash can, 96-gallon odor trash can with wheels. Stickers still on it. Here's brand new. As there was a landscaping crew that had been contracted by Parks and Rec, and they had been cleaning the area, and they found it and had put it in their truck. May have been a little excited to get a brand new trash can. But officers in the area saw it and said, "Wait," because it was relevant to the case. And they looked in that trash can. There was red-brown staining. There was organic material. And they did a full crime scene analysis on this trash can, using forensic techniques, photographs, and other things you'll hear throughout this trial. The next thing they found was just a couple hundred yards, less than a quarter mile from that apartment, 5210 Mockingbird, on that same frontage road, in that same area as the trash can. They found the storm drain. They saw this. The cover was on. Shone a flashlight through the hole, and they saw something down there. It's about 15 feet down, with a culvert running side to side. This was the place that Saria was found. This was the place where her body was found, with a bullet wound above her left eyebrow. She had been for likely days in that water. In there was a blanket, a pillow, a sheet, as well as some tan, military-looking gloves. Those were also in there with her.
It is terrifying to think about finding someone's body in that state, in that location, after a painstaking manhunt. And there's more evidence for the prosecution to go through. Because you remember when I mentioned that the defendant said, or allegedly said, he was running errands on the day that Saria disappeared? Here's what those purchase orders allegedly brought up and how they were allegedly used.
Throughout this case, evidence will be shown to prove these beyond a reasonable doubt. Some of those will be on August 6th. He did go to Fred Meyer. However, there was no guacamole supplies when he went the first time at 12:26 p.m. He purchased Gatorade, marinara sauce, and brand new sheets. You'll watch video of him making that purchase. He put in his loyalty member number, points. He went again at 6:12, where he purchased hydrogen peroxide, other cleaning supplies, Q-tips. Then he went to Lowe's, 8 p.m. Bought a 96-gallon toter trash can And then he went back to Fred Meyer when apparently he was in the Bread and Brew parking lot or searching the woods. But back to Fred Meyer and bought a new mattress pad and a Red Bull. All of this evidence will be presented in the coming weeks. Also found during the crime scene, carpet cleaner. A swab of that carpet cleaner was sent to the statewide crime detection laboratory. DNA analysis was performed by Dr. Emily Matthews on this as well as other items in this case. The swab of that matched the DNA of Saria Hildabrand. We also found that hydrogen peroxide and many other signs and evidence of cleaning up.
And the prosecutor also mentions other experts that she expects to testify in her case. Firearms expert expected to explain that it was unlikely to be a suicide based on distance and stippling patterns. Plus, the medical examiner will testify about Saria's cause of death, along with more witnesses who interacted with the defendant around the time of this killing.
You'll hear from Marie once about how it went that night and what she found. And when the defendant asked her before Saria's body was found, what property should I give to her family? I was thinking her baby blanket from her childhood and her wedding ring. Saria hadn't been found yet. That was on Wednesday, or Thursday at the latest. You'll hear from patrol officers who helped investigate this case and how evidence was collected, presented, and sent to the lab. And you'll hear from many detectives who worked with Detective Clark on their ample interviews with Zarrius Hildabrand and the inconsistencies they found. And you'll even hear Mr. Hildabrand tell his mom, after he was arrested in this case, "I've tangled myself in lies, probably can't be undone." For all of those reasons, after evidence is presented in the coming weeks, the state will be before you in closing. Apply those factors to the elements that I put up, showing how the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of murder in the first degree, murder in the second degree, and tampering with physical evidence. And we will ask you to find him guilty at that time. Thank you.
So we're going to have to wait and see how the prosecution's case unfolds as they begin to call witnesses. And we'll be covering this trial, by the way, gavel to gavel. So make sure to check out all the coverage on Law and Crime and Court TV. But let's go back for a second, okay? Now remember, this is important. Zarrius Hildabrand is innocent. He is presumed innocent unless proven guilty. Otherwise, this wouldn't be a fair trial, right? We've laid out the statement from the prosecution. We've laid out the potential evidence that they're going to have in this case. Now let's go to the defense. How did the defense try to argue things away in their opening statement, or explain things away, or attempt to explain things away? Here you go.
This is a case that involves the tragedy of a young woman who lost her life to an accident and the story of a scared young man. The evidence in this case will show that Zarrius Hildabrand made a lot of poor choices, a lot of mistakes, after he discovered that his wife was deceased in their apartment on the morning of August 6, 2023. He discovered his wife had died from a single gunshot wound to her head. The evidence will show that the gunshot that killed Saria was the result of a tragic, self-inflicted accident.
A self-inflicted accident. Now that is a defense you don't hear very often. It's actually something we kind of speculated about on our episode the other day, right? When we talked to Eric Faddis about this, about what potential defenses could be there. Now Zarrius' attorney is going to get into why this could be the case in a moment, but first, this is where she gives the jury a closer look at the defendant's childhood.
Around the age of 5, Zarrius was taken into the foster care system. He would be adopted out of foster care by his adoptive family. With his adoptive family, he was with his mother, his father, his older brother, his younger brother MJ, and his little sister. And Zarrius grew up in Kentucky. He'd graduate from high school. His oldest brother would get in some trouble. And Zarrius wanted to be a role model for his little brother MJ. Zarrius joined the military after he graduated from high school, and that's where he met Saria.
So it's clear the defendant did not have an easy childhood by any means. It appeared he wanted to set a good example for his siblings and his adoptive family, and at the time, that led to meeting his wife, Saria. But the defense doesn't shy away from their client's flaws.
Made some poor choices in the relationship. He would get caught Snapchatting with women that weren't Saria. But on his 21st birthday, he was happy. Saria wanted to celebrate with him, and so they went out for a celebration. Zarrius didn't know on August 5th, 2023, the horror he would wake up to the morning of August 6th, 2023.
So it's interesting, humanizing him, but also not escaping some problems there, right? Not running away from it. It's not like they're waiting for a sneak attack from the prosecution. Now, you heard the prosecutor's version of events from the night that the defendant and Saria went out with friends for his birthday. So pay close attention to how the defense attorney explains her version of the timeline.
Like many 21-year-olds, he went out and he partied. What do we know about Zarrius? We know he likes to drink. He drank before he was 21. He liked whiskey. In fact, he would drink so much that he would fall asleep. And when he turned 21, he was able to do this legally in a bar. He was excited. He started at Dave & Buster's with Saria, some other friends. Eventually the party would move to the Willowa, where he continued to drink. Zarrius became highly intoxicated. The party decided to move from the Willowa to the Gaslight. Zarrius was so intoxicated that Gaslight would not let him in. So the party was time to end. This is around 1 in the morning on August 6th. Zarrius gets in an Uber with his wife, Saria, and friend, Marie. He throws up in the Uber. They get back to their apartment. He throws up again. Saria has to help him get into the apartment. Zarrius is sleepy. So, what happened between the time Zarrius got home with Saria and the time that he woke up? On his intoxicated state, Zarrius' memory isn't fully functioning. He wakes up on August 6th in the morning, and he discovers that his wife is deceased in the bed. She has one gunshot wound to her head. A gunshot wound that you'll hear from an expert in this case, Samantha Castle, that while we don't know the exact range, the gun was fired from not contact to up to 12 inches. Zarrius is 21 years old, and he's afraid.
Yeah, according to the defense, Zarrius found Saria with a gunshot wound. And even if that were true, why would he, as the prosecutors argued, go to such great lengths to cover up his wife's death? Here's how the defense attorney explains it.
Fear is the motivation behind the reason that Zarrius did what he did, what you'll hear about. You'll hear how he pretends that she's missing. You'll hear how he went to Lowe's. You'll hear how he purchased a garbage can. You'll hear where his wife was discovered. You will hear those things.
Now keep in mind, the prosecution has the burden of proof in this case. It wouldn't be the first time that I've seen a case where the defense may suggest, you know what, they were part of the cover-up, the panic, the cleanup, but they didn't contribute to the killing in any way. Okay, I've seen that before. But the defense uses the end of this opening statement to point out a key piece of evidence that she believes is missing.
You won't hear from a single witness who was there when the gun was fired. And so while you will not like what you hear, like Zarrius did after the fact, while you will see graphic pictures, and you will likely be angry at what Mr. Hildabrand did after he discovered his wife deceased. The evidence simply will not show that Zarrius pulled the trigger. That will not be shown. This case is about a young man who made a horrible mistake. This is about the fear that happens and the choices people make when they're put in unthinkable circumstances. This case is a tragedy. It's heartbreaking. It's not murder. That is why, at the conclusion of this trial, we'll be asking you as a jury to find that Mr. Hildabrand is not guilty of the accusations in this case. Thank you.
So look, we'll see over the next few days what witnesses have to say, whether the jury believes this was a horrific accident or a cold-blooded murder. But for now, those are the openings. But that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you next time, everybody.